Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever noticed that the good girl is often the loneliest person in the room? You see, it is precisely because she is so easy to love, but so incredibly hard to truly know. We see her everywhere, don't we? She is the one who remembers every birthday, the one who never forgets a thank you note, and the one who mediates every family argument with a calm, practiced grace. I mean, she is the very personification of reliability. Reflectively, on the surface, her life looks like a masterpiece of social harmony. She is well liked, highly respected, and deeply appreciated. But if we look closer, and I mean really look, we start to see that this perfect woman who never makes a scene is actually living inside a high-walled fortress of her own making. Philosophically, in psychology, we often talk about the persona. You know, that mask we wear to navigate the world. For the good girl, this mask isn't just a tool. It has become her entire identity. Measured, she has mastered the art of being, well, what everyone else needs her to be. She is the empathetic listener, the diligent worker, and the self-sacrificing friend. Because she is so pleasant to be around, she is constantly surrounded by people. Yet, right, this popularity is actually her prison. Think about it. When your entire value is based on being agreeable, you lose the permission to be authentic. You cannot be angry, you cannot be tired, and you certainly cannot be difficult. The world falls in love with the reflection she provides, not the woman beneath it. She becomes a mirror for everyone else's expectations. And while everyone loves what they see in that mirror, no one is actually looking at the glass itself. She navigates her life with a polished facade of solitude, carrying the heavy weight of other people's comfort, while her own internal world remains untouched and unvisited. It leads us to a haunting contradiction that many of you might be feeling right now. If being good is the very thing that is supposed to bring us closer to others and earn us a place in the tribe, why does it feel like it's pushing us into a cold, dark corner of isolation? Why does the path of least resistance lead to a life where you are surrounded by admirers, yet feel like a total stranger? Ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about the good girl, we often focus on her external rewards, the praise she receives, her reputation for reliability, and the way she gracefully keeps the peace. But rarely do we examine the internal erosion that occurs in the quiet moments, when the world isn't watching. This is the silent cost of compliance. It begins, you see, with the intoxicating trap of being the low-maintenance friend. On the surface, it feels like a virtue, right? You are easy to love because you ask for nothing. You are the one who adapts, who shifts your schedule, and who never makes a fuss. But there is a hidden psychological weight to being low maintenance. It eventually transforms into being no maintenance. You see, when you never demand space, others eventually stop offering it. You become a fixture in their lives, functional, steady, and entirely taken for granted. The role of the peacekeeper is perhaps even more taxing. Ladies and gentlemen, if you identify with this, you know the sheer exhaustion of hypovigilance. You aren't just living your life. You are constantly scanning the emotional temperature of the room, acting as a human thermostat. You suppress your own irritation to ensure someone else doesn't get angry. You swallow your sadness so as not to dampen the mood. Over time, this constant self-censorship creates a
profound sense of internal agitation. It is a quiet, buzzing anxiety that whispers a terrifying truth. You have become a supporting character in your own story. Poignant. You are the one who listens, the one who heals, and the one who understands. But you are left wondering, who is there to understand you? Deeply philosophical. This trade-off, sacrificing your authenticity for the sake of social harmony, isn't just a personality trait. Analytical, in the world of psychology, we see it as a slow-motion identity theft. Gently, we tell ourselves we are being good, but in reality, we are paying a debt we never owed. Somber, we spend our lives building bridges for others to cross, only to realize we've left ourselves stranded on the other side. And this leads us to a pivotal question that sits at the very heart of this struggle. Slowly, what is the specific, devastating price we pay when we consistently trade our truth for the comfort of others? Finality, as it turns out, the cost isn't just a lack of boundaries. It is the loss of the very thing that makes us feel alive. Gentle, measured. Ladies and gentlemen, to understand the true weight of this loneliness, we must first reframe how we see ourselves. Softly. You see, we have been conditioned to believe that being the good girl is a virtue, a testament to our character and our kindness. Analytical, but in the quiet study of the human mind, we find a different story. Deeply, for many, this chronic agreeableness isn't actually a personality trait. It is a sophisticated survival strategy. Philosophical, when we look closely, we realize that excessive agreeableness is often, well, a polite mask for self-abandonment. At some point in our lives, we learned that our needs were a burden, or that conflict was a threat to our security. Slightly firmer, so we adapted. Slowly, we became masters of reading the room, softening our edges, and silencing our no before it could ever reach our lips. But, ladies and gentlemen, we must recognize the cost of this adaptation. I mean, when we prioritize being good over being real, we are making a devastating trade. We are trading intimacy for safety. We stay good because it feels safe. If we never complain, never push back, and never demand space, we assume we will never be rejected. Yet, the paradox of the good girl is that the more you please, the more invisible you become. The loneliness you feel tonight isn't because you are inherently unlovable, or because you lack value. It is because you have replaced your authentic, breathing self with a curated version that is impossible for others to truly connect with. You are providing the world with a shadow, and a shadow, right? A shadow cannot feel the warmth of a genuine embrace. True connection, the kind that heals the soul, requires friction. Formally, it requires the risk of being difficult. You know, to be known is to be seen in your entirety, your boundaries, your frustrations, and your complex truths. We often fear that being difficult will drive people away. And for those who only benefited from your silence, it certainly might. But, ladies and gentlemen, being difficult is not a flaw. It is the doorway to being known. It is the moment you stop being an echo of what others want and start becoming the voice of who you are. But how do we actually make that shift? How do we begin to dismantle a survival strategy that has kept us safe for decades? As it turns out, the path back to ourselves requires us to face a specific psychological threshold, a moment of reckoning, where we must choose between the comfort of our cage and the uncertainty of our freedom. And actually, the first step of that journey begins with a realization that most of us are absolutely terrified to admit. Ladies and gentlemen, You see, we find ourselves at the very threshold of change. To dismantle a mask that has been fused to our identity for years, well, we cannot simply rip it off. We must carefully deconstruct the architecture that holds it in place. This is not a journey of sudden rebellion, right? But one of quiet, deliberate construction. Calmly. We are learning to build a life where your presence is defined by your truth, not your performance. The first step in this architecture? You see, it's mastering the art of micro-disappointment. Sympathetically, for those of us conditioned to be the good girl, the very idea of letting someone down feels like a psychological emergency. Firmly, to heal, we must desensitize our nervous system to this fear. Measured. I want you to begin intentionally saying no to small, low-stakes requests. It could be declining an invitation to a casual lunch you don't truly want to attend, or perhaps refusing to take on a minor task that isn't yours to carry. Encouragingly, by leaning into these tiny moments of friction, you are building your tolerance for the temporary disapproval of others. Softly, you are proving to yourself that you can survive the discomfort of not being perfect in someone else's eyes. As we build this tolerance, ladies and gentlemen, we must also conduct an honest audit, of the people we hold closest. In this process, you must learn to distinguish between being nice and being kind. Wisely. They are not the same, are they? Serious. Niceness is often a survival strategy. It is rooted in compliance, in smoothing things over, and in making sure no one is ever upset with us. Deeply. Kindness, however, is a virtue of the soul that requires truth. Softly, with conviction. To be kind is to be honest, even when that honesty is difficult. If you are being nice simply to avoid conflict, you are not being authentic. You are being agreeable. Thoughtfully, kindness demands that you show up as your full self, which means setting boundaries that protect your well-being. Finally, you must bridge the gap between who you are and who you show the world. Quietly. This requires 10 minutes of daily, unfiltered reflection. In a space where no one else's expectations can reach you, write down the raw truth of your day. Earnestly. Do not write what you think you should feel. Write what you actually felt. What did you swallow today? Vulnerable. What did you smile through while your heart was heavy? What did you allow yourself to express versus the reality of your internal world? Wisely. By documenting this discrepancy, you begin to see the mask for what it is. A hollow structure that no longer serves the woman you are becoming.
But as we begin to peel back these layers, a new and perhaps more daunting shadow emerges. We often fear that if we stop being good, we will somehow become bad. We worry that if we stop being the person everyone else needs, there will be nothing left of us at all. However, as you begin to reclaim your space, you will notice something fascinating about the people around you. Some will celebrate your growth, but others will fight to keep the mask on your face. And it's in that friction that we discover the most uncomfortable truth of all. A truth that changes everything we thought we knew about love and loyalty. That friction, you see, it is actually your liberation. Because here is the secret we are often too afraid to voice. The goal of this psychological growth was never to become bad. It was never about becoming selfish, cold, or uncaring. No. The goal is simply to be whole. Ladies and gentlemen, when you spend your life being the good girl, you aren't actually a person to those around you. You are a mirror. You spend all your energy reflecting back their needs, their expectations, and their comfort. But mirrors, well, they don't have hearts. Mirrors can't be held. And most tragically, Mirrors cannot be truly loved. They can only be used. When you finally break that mirror, when you start saying no, or when you express a boundary, or even when you admit you're tired instead of smiling through the exhaustion, you finally become a solid person. You become someone with edges, depth, and weight. And it is only then, when you are finally real, that people can actually love you for who you are, rather than for the convenience you provide. Authentic love, it requires an authentic person to receive it. Ladies and gentlemen, the journey from being good to being real is the most important journey you will ever take. It is the path toward genuine intimacy and radical self-respect. It is the moment you stop auditioning for your own life and start actually living it. This week, I want to challenge you to celebrate what I call micro-disappointment wins. These are the small moments where you choose your own truth over someone else's comfort, right? Perhaps it's telling a friend you can't make it to an event, or finally voicing an opinion that might be unpopular. These small acts of being real, you see, they are the bricks you use to build a life of integrity. Please, share your micro-disappointment wins with us in the comments. I'd truly love to hear how you are reclaiming your space. If these insights have resonated with your heart today, I invite you to subscribe to Mindscapes Explored. Join our community of deep thinkers and truth seekers as we continue to navigate the complex landscapes of the human mind together. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Until next time, remember that being yourself